Hey there, Jimmy the K with a special installment of the Jimmy the K Sports Show. I'm so glad that you have come to hang out with us this Monday afternoon. This is actually a special show due to the fact that we did not have ours on Saturday, and me as a host did not think that it would be fair to you as a fan to have to wait till Saturday for another show. 2 weeks to me just isn't fair to you as the fan. First things first, I want to go ahead and start off with a rant. I'm going to start off with a rant of manager Ron Washington of the Texas Rangers. Too many people like Dan Anthony here on ESPN Dallas over here, who likes to comment and listen to themselves talk all the time, have this attitude that they can be an armchair manager or armchair coach and do a better job than Ron Washington. Well, why don't you get off your lazy heinies and apply for the job? I don't see you doing it, though. So until then, pipe down and shut up. This is the real world, my friends, not the little leagues. Just because you coach the Hewlin Point General Manager Club baseball team to first place, or the YMCA's Little League team to first place, does not give you the right to spout off against a manager and the only manager in Rangers history to get them to the World Series. Does it? I think not. Here's the big problem. Too many of these armchair managers get on these sites like ESPN Dallas and think that they can pipe off about being a better manager than Ron Washington. But yet, when you give them the task of telling them to apply for the job and doing it, all they come up with is, you're an idiot. Is that all you can come up with? If you want to debate with a man, my friend, then grow a pair, and as a friend of mine told me the other day, man up and debate instead of saying, you're an idiot. Because the only person that's an idiot is you for thinking that you can coach the Rangers better than Ron Washington. Now, am I saying Ron Washington's the best manager in the major leagues? No, he makes his mistakes like every manager out there. Every manager in the major leagues has made these boneheaded mistakes, but yet for some odd reasons, people like Dan Anthony and these other dingalings on ESPN Dallas think that they can come on and spout off about Ron Washington. When the truth of the matter is, every manager's done it. They made boneheaded decisions at boneheaded times, but yet Ron Washington's the only one that we put under the pedestal. Why? Why? I can understand he's a manager and he's going to make mistakes. That's why I don't get on ESPN Dallas or on my show and tell you that I think I can coach better than Ron Washington, or I can coach better than Jason Garrett, or I can coach better than Lindy Ruff. Well, guess what, guys? I can't. And that's why I'm not going to tell you or spout off against Ron Washington for boneheaded mistakes. He makes mistakes. We all make mistakes. But the truth of the matter is, Mr. Dan Anthony, just because you coached your club, your YMCA club, to a first place trophy does not give you any reason for you to spout off against a major league manager who has won 90 plus games almost every year he's been here. Four seasons of 90 plus wins. 2 back-to-back World Series. Now, people like Dan Anthony on ESPN Dallas, and yes, I'm calling him out. I want him to come out and man up and see what kind of a man he really is when he hears his name being spouted off. So, Mr. Dan Anthony, let me ask you something. Was it not Ron Washington that got us the back-to-back World Series? Was it not Nelson Cruz that dropped or had a ball clearly sail over his head and then grab his hammy And somebody else says he didn't hurt his hammy. There was no mention of hamstring. Are you an idiot? Did you not watch the World Series? He grabbed at his hammy as he was reaching for the ball. Hello, that's a hamstring injury, I would think. Was it not Ron Washington who has gotten us to the World Series? Granted, the only thing people want to bring up is the last 2 years. The last 2 years when we didn't make the playoffs. Guys, shut up. We did make the playoffs. All right? You're going to sit here and tell me, no, we didn't make the playoffs. Legitimately, that 163rd game is not considered a playoff. Well, guess what? In my eyes, any game past 162 is a playoff game. They should have won last year's game, but Baltimore was better. All right? Is it not the fact that Ron Washington has done so much for this club that we have to knock every little thing that he does wrong? People are saying he should have walked so-and-so in yesterday's game, 427 against the Seattle Mariners. He should have walked so-and-so. That would have left the bases loaded. You know, we would have been all cookies and candy. And I'm Dan Anthony. I work over here at Hewlin Point. Great clips, and I know what I'm talking about. Well, guess what, Dan Anthony? If you load the bases, the same stupid thing would have happened. You're going to pull Ogando, who had struck out one batter, struck out two batters, and was 0-2 up on one player before giving up the hit when Smoke hit that ball? Really? Really? And then you're going to tell me that Joakim Soria should pitch more than one inning. But yet, you're the type of dingling that would be like, oh, Joakim Soria's hurt. Why did we pitch him 2 innings? Because you're the moron that thinks he should have pitched 2 innings. We don't need to pitch Joakim Soria more than an inning. He's had 2+ Tommy John surgeries. Why would we pitch him 2 innings? Answer that question for me, Mr. Dan Anthony. Why do you pitch Joakim Soria more than 2 innings? A guy who has history of Tommy John surgery. He's had it twice, actually. Why? I mean, for crying out loud, you're an armchair coach who claims that you can do a better job than Ron Washington. Well, people, if you're going to be an armchair coach and think that you can do a better job than Mr. Ron Washington, then why don't you apply for the job? And then here comes the kicker. Then when we're 10-152 for 4 straight seasons, or for 1 season, and they've done fired your hiney after the first half of the season, I get to be the one laughing at you. Ron Washington is just like any other manager out there. He's made boneheaded decisions, but yesterday was not one. He had the guy he wanted to go with in there, and Ogando blew the game, not Ron Washington. Ron Washington does not throw the pitches. Ogando does. Ogando had sailed through 2 batters yesterday just fine. Was up 0-2 on Justin Smoke when he smoked a single. And then you're going to say Ogando melted down. He should have immediately had somebody up in the bullpen. Really? You know, I've had it up to here with armchair coaches. You know, I try my best when I do a show not to knock Ron Washington, because I know the Rangers are the ones, the players are the ones putting the runs on the board. Ron Washington only coaches them, and it can only coach them so well. The Rangers have issues right now, hitting with runners in scoring position. Okay? We have that problem. Is that a Ron Washington problem? No. People want to knock Prince Fielder. His numbers are down. You know, I can agree with that to some point. His numbers offensively are down. Look at what he has done defensively, though. His numbers are starting to increase. Is that not a work and of the great master of teaching defense, Ron Washington? Is it not? Was it not Chavez in Oakland that credited Ron Washington for his gold gloves? Was it not? You know, and then people like Dan Anthony over here commenting on ESPN Dallas want to bring up the fact that we lost the power vacuum. We lost people like Napoli. We lost Hamilton. We lost AJ. We lost Kinsler. Every one of those names you have brought up, Dan Anthony, are slipping. Their offensive numbers are sliding. And moreover, Josh Hamilton, you're really bringing up Josh Hamilton. Josh Hamilton has not performed in the 2 years he's been in Los Angeles. And right now he's on the DL. And you're going to bring up Josh Hamilton as being a power machine? Really? Furthermore, Kinsler is not putting up the leadoff spot numbers that Shin-Soo Choo is. All right? On-base percentage, Shin-Soo has a better on-base percentage than Ian Kinsler. Am I happier with Choo than I was with Kinsler? Definitely. I am 110% happier with Kinsler or with Choo than I am with Kinsler. 110% sure. Why do we knock Washington? Okay? The truth of the matter is he's gotten this team, and a team that I will grant you is not the team that he was expecting to go into the season. He was expecting to have Derek Holland. He was expecting to have Jurickson Profar. He was expecting to have Giovanni Soto, and he was not expecting Tanner Scheppers to get hurt, whom I may add, is it Tanner Scheppers' fault that he's hurt? Yes. Is it Ron Washington's fault that he's hurt? No. Did he go to Ron Washington that day of the game and say, I'm hurt, coach? Can I sit out? No, he didn't. He didn't mention anything. Instead, he did what a player does, and he played through the injury. You know, so many people get on these little sites like ESPN Dallas and can spout off all day long. But how many other sports do you see professional players playing hurt? Every professional sport, you see it. And then they want to spout off about Nelson Cruz. Well, his hamstring was hurt earlier that game. Ron Washington knew it. How did Ron Washington know that his hamstring was hurt? Were you in the locker room? Probably not. So, for crying out loud, let's stop knocking Washington for stuff that happened 4 years ago and for two games the last 2 years when we supposedly slid. All right? You know, I'm calling you out, Dan Anthony, and I'm calling you out publicly. I hope, I really do hope that you're a man and you find my site and we can really get this going. But the truth of the matter is, my friend, Ron Washington has got this team playing together with pieces, like I said, that he was not expecting earlier in the season. 4 players on the DL right now that he was not expecting. He was expecting those guys to be healthy. Instead, we've got Michael Choice stepping up. We've got Josh Wilson stepping up. We've got Donnie Murphy stepping up. But you guys don't want to mention that. What you want to mention is about how bad of a manager Ron Washington really is. Really? How is he a bad manager when he has us tied for first right now? With the pieces that we have that weren't even expected to be our opening day pieces. Tell me, please, how Ron Washington is a bad manager. I have stated and continue to state that Ron Washington is like many other managers and will make mistakes. It's all under the belt. It happens, all right? But for people to get on sites like ESPN Dallas or pipe off on me or pipe off on Rangers Insider and say Ron Washington is not a manager, he's more of this or of that, don't know a lick about baseball, all right? So, am I happy with the situation the Rangers are in right now? I am 100% happy with the situation they're in right now. They've got 4 of their 5 starters back. You've got Darvish pitching to his extent the way he is. Martin Perez is pitching lights out. But my big question mark is, in the heat of summer, can he still pitch this way in the heat of summer? You've got Matt Harrison, who pitched quite well yesterday, but they just couldn't get it done. You got Kobe Lewis, who's pitched a couple of games, 3 games, and a couple, 1 or 2 of those games, they just come up short. And Robbie Ross, whom I may add, once Holland gets back, will go into the bullpen, and so will Shepherds. You get this team back to 100%, which they're not at right now, and this team becomes the best, or one of the best, if not the best, team in the majors. Let me ask you this, Mr. Dan Anthony. You're so knocking Ron Washington. What about Joe Girardi over in New York? I bet you'd be knocking him too. I think Joe Girardi's doing a pretty good job with the pieces that he has in New York. And I'm not a Yankees fan by any means. But what I do know is a good coach when I see a good coach. And Joe Girardi's one. So is Ron Washington. So, you know, let's get off of managers' backs. I understand they make boneheaded mistakes, just like players. But the other day when we lost, it was not Ron Washington's fault. Mitch Moreland made a boneheaded base running mistake that ended the game for us, all right? That was boneheaded on Mitch Moreland's part. Am I happy with Mitch Moreland at DH? I am very happy, all right? His numbers are not where they need to be. But I'm not going to jump off the Mitch Moreland bandwagon like so many over at ESPN Dallas commenting are going to do. Because I know that the second that we jump off the Mitch Moreland bandwagon will be the second that he goes lights out on us, just like Chris Davis did. Chris Davis, Mark Teixeira, you know, sometimes it just takes this change of scenery. So you're saying, let's trade Mitch Moreland. Okay. Put Michael Choice in at DH every day. Okay, so he's not going to get any playing time. Instead, you're going to have him sit on the bench. When he is a quality infielder, you're going to have Michael Choice DH. Why? Why are you going to have Michael Choice DH? Tell me that. What can we get in return for Mitch Moreland? What can we? I mean, the truth of the matter is, Ron Washington is a good manager. He's the best manager the Rangers have ever had. He's the only manager to get us to a World Series. He's the only manager to get us to as many seasons as he has of 90-plus wins. He's the only manager that has taken pieces that he was not expecting at the beginning of the year and turned them into a first place or tied for a first place team. So, let's get off Washington's back, would we? I can understand people, telling me, Ron Washington made this boneheaded mistake. Should have happened this way. When I watched the game and knew, okay, Ron Washington did kind of make a mistake there. But it's another thing for people to get on sites like ESPN Dallas, Mr. Dan Anthony, I'm calling you out, and think that you can do a better job than Ron Washington. You're the general manager of a Great Clips, for crying out loud. All right? Just because you can general manage a Great Clips does not mean you can manage or general manager or be a general manager of a ball club. All right? All right? So let's pipe down on Ron Washington. All right? With that being said, the Rangers are tied for first. Am I happy they're tied for first? I am ecstatic that they're tied for first right now. And I continue to say this, and we'll say this again. I'm ecstatic at the fact that they're doing it with pieces that they were not expecting. Donnie Murphy, Josh Wilson, Robinson Chirinos, just to name a few, Michael Choice. Now, those were not guys that they were expecting to have to come in and step into the roles that they've had to step in, and for them to be tied for first place. Pitching and defense wins championships, Dan Anthony, not power hitters. If you were a true Nolan Ryan fan, you would know that. Pitching and defense wins championships. You don't have to hit home runs all year long to win a World Series. You can be a 1-0 ball club for 160 or 140 games out of the year and still win a World Series without the majority of those being home runs. You don't need power hitters, Dan Anthony. And the names you brought up, I'm clearly going to state it, the names that you brought up in your post, and I hope you're a man and will debate or do something other than saying you're an idiot on ESPN Dallas, because the truth of the matter is, if anybody's going to be name calling, that's not a site to be name calling. If you want to man up, let's man up man to man. All right, let's man up man to man. I'll give you a way to contact me at the end of our show. All right? So let me bring up the names Dan Anthony mentioned as power hitters. A.J. Pierzynski, he was not a power hitter. I believe he hit 17 to 20 home runs in a Ranger uniform. Mike Napoli, he did have one good year with the Rangers. They didn't want to re-sign him because they felt like his numbers would decrease, and they were worried about a surgery or a hip surgery or his hip that he had previously hurt in season before. Ian Kinsler, his numbers aren't near as good as Shin-Soo Choo's in the leadoff spot. All right? On base percentage, Choo wins. Stealing-wise, I feel Choo wins. Leadership-wise, I feel Choo wins. Josh Hamilton was another name you brought up. Josh Hamilton. Do you know where Josh Hamilton is right now, Mr. Dan Anthony? He's on the disabled list with a torn ligament to either his ring finger or his thumb. Fans can correct me on our page. If I'm not mistaken, it's one of those two fingers. But he's on the disabled list. And what did he do last year for Los Angeles? Was he a power hitter there? Did he have good numbers? I think not. His numbers slipped the year before in Texas. And you're telling me that he's a power hitter. All right, he had one good year with Texas. And you're going to tell me that he is a power hitter and that he was part of the power vacuum for the Texas Rangers. Nelly Cruz. His offensive numbers right now are okay for the Baltimore Orioles. I'm not going to lie. I believe he has 7 or 8 home runs. He's performing quite well over there. But defensively, his numbers are amongst the worst in defensive outfielders in all of baseball. Amongst the worst. Why would I want a outfielder whose numbers are the worst defensively, even if his numbers offensively are good? Why? It makes no sense, Dan Anthony. All right? So all these names you've brought up were names that have since left the Rangers. The Rangers decided or chose to either trade, i.e. Kinsler, or not re-sign Napoli, A.J. Pierzynski, and Josh Hamilton. And all of their numbers are slipping. How can you say that they were part of a power vacuum or power hitters or whatever? Just because they have one good year does not mean that the next 5 or 6 years are going to be great. Dan Anthony, you're the type of guy that would give somebody like Robinson Cano 10 years and $240 million, or A-Rod 10 years, $252 million, or even worse, Albert Pujols. Those are guys who are not performing for their clubs. All right? Why would I do that? Why? Why would I do that? How are they power hitters? When they were here, yeah, they had one good year, 2 good years. But right now their numbers are slipping, and I am proud that John Daniels and ownership group did not re-sign them. I'm ecstatic they didn't re-sign them. So why do you want to sign players like them when their numbers are slipping? Answer that question for me, Mr. General Manager at Great Clips, Dan Anthony. All right? All right? You know, I've sat here and contemplated whether to do this show or not. But I feel very strongly that Ron Washington is the best manager in Rangers history. But apparently, some people think differently. I'm not saying that if you disagree with me, I'm going to throw you under the bus. At no point have I said that, or will I say that. But the truth of the matter is, I have to be proud of the Rangers. I have to be proud of what Ron Washington has done with what he's been given. So, you know, I don't mind if you, the fans, disagree with me. You can come on our pages, any one of our pages, and tell me differently. I don't care. But show me the facts. Show me the facts. Dan Anthony wanted to bring up the fact that the Rangers lost power hitters, and that's why they're not winning games. You don't have to have power hitters to win games. That's the whole reason Nolan Ryan came to this club. He was getting pitchers in here that could pitch and make this team a pitcher and defensive team. Did the Astros, when they went to the World Series in years past, did they have a buku of power hitters? No, they played a lot of small ball. If you look at that club, they did a lot of small ball when they went to the World Series. Their pitchers, though, were lights out. Lots of one-run wins for that team. Not because of power hitters, because of small ball baseball. let's look at those teams. You know, you want to look at teams like that, but even the St. Louis Cardinals, they didn't win the World Series against us because of power. They won it because of their pitching, because of small ball, because of them playing together. Not because Ron Washington did a bad job managing. Ron Washington, again, is the only manager to get us to back-to-back World Series. And here's a little known fact for you sports fans out there. Some of you may or may not know this, but guess what? This is trivia time. Let me tell you something. Did you not know when the Atlanta Braves were going to the World Series constantly in the 90s, and they were that team of the 90s to beat? It took them that third World Series try in 5 years to win it. 3 tries in 5 years. Granted, if we stay that course, this year is the year. I'm not saying they're going to win the World Series this year. I can't tell you that. Not after 1 month of, almost a month of playing. I can't tell you that. But what I can tell you is that when this team gets 100%, I strongly feel confident that this team will be the team or one of the teams to beat. I strongly feel that way. With that being said, I apologize for the rant. Look at a couple other sports stories so we don't end on a sour note. The Dallas Stars were eliminated from the NHL playoffs. And I do need to make a little side note here. A good friend of mine, Brandon Turmaville, I hope I'm pronouncing your last name right, Brandon. Turmaville sent me a message. It was 2008 the last time that the Stars went to the playoffs, and they actually went to the conference championship game, if I'm not mistaken. I believe that's what it was that they went to the conference championship game that year. So, let me check real fast. Trusty technology, always doing more than one thing. So, yes, they made it to the conference finals in 2008. I thought it was the 90s. That was my fault. That was totally my fault. I really thought, wow, time does fly when you're having fun, right? Or when you have your second child. So, the bright side is the Dallas Stars were, not the bright side, but the bright side is they made it back to the playoffs this year. They were eliminated in the first round, so that is a bright side. I really do feel like Lindy Ruff will have this team playing better in years to come. Okay, my last story before I let you go. There is rumors that the Dallas Cowboys are going to do anything and everything they can to get Johnny Manziel. Personal opinion, Jerry Jones, you're an idiot. I'm not trying to knock A&M fans at all, but I do not think Johnny Manziel would be any better of a quarterback than Tony Romo. What are you going to do? You just signed Tony Romo, I believe it was last year or the year before. You can correct me if I'm wrong. To an extension, then you're going to trade for Johnny Manziel and claim that he's possibly your starting quarterback. What sense does that make? You're going to trade Tony Romo? And if you do, let's name some players out there that we can trade Romo for. I mean, can we trade him for that first-round pick and a couple of wide receivers, a couple of defensive players? I don't know. But really, Jerry Jones, I do feel like that would be a huge mistake. I don't feel Johnny Manziel is any better than Tony Romo. And I'm not trying to knock A&M fans. I have never been a Manziel fan, but I'm not trying to knock him. He's a good athlete, but is he a good quarterback? I don't believe so. I think he's Tim Tebow reincarnated. But again, that's my opinion. What's your thoughts on that? Do you think that the Dallas Cowboys should sign or attempt to trade for Johnny Manziel? If so, give me your reasons why. I'm Jimmy the K. Remember, there's very easy ways you can get in contact with us. You can like us on Facebook at All About Sports Zone. That's All About Sports Zone. Or you can email us, allaboutsportszone@gmail.com. Yeah, Dan Anthony, that's you. You can email any criticisms that you have. Or if you want to debate, let's bring it. allaboutsportszone@gmail.com. Or you can like us on Twitter at Jimmy Kersey1. Or if you're a friend of mine on Facebook, just look up Jimmy Ray Kersey Jr. and send me a message. Your sports questions are always welcomed and always more than welcomed. And so are your comments on our show. Thank you so very much. And until Saturday, remember Saturday, 9 p.m. Central Daylight Time. We'll be back. Until then, I'm Jimmy the K. Peace out.